rare to see fat bodies positively portrayed in the media. I think fat is conceived as monstrous because we're taught these things from a very early age. Monsters and ogres and people who threaten you and people that you should be afraid of.
Yeah. I think people think that that's not what people want to watch on television.
Yeah.
And I so fundamentally disagree. Yep. All I want to see is fat people fucking. Like I just so badly want to see them having hot sex that isn't like a joke. And I don't think I'm alone. So no, it's a constant conversation that they're like, yeah, but that's not. And you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong. Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. What about, especially with your dancing, I imagine, there's so many limited beliefs in when we think of a dancer, what do we visualize?
Yeah, I think, so as a fat athlete, I was barre dancing at the time this was happening. Since then I've gotten into endurance athletics. I've done a couple marathons and training for a big triathlon. And I think that the belief that I most often have to deal with is what we call the good fatty, bad fatty dichotomy. This is the idea that will be expressed like, well, there are fatties who take care of themselves and they exercise and they run. I'm okay with those people. But then there are the fat people who are sedentary and all they do is eat, McDonald's food, and I'm not okay with them. And what I first would like to point out is that you could divide literally any group of people into those two groups. Right. There are people who take care of themselves and plump. There are Rotarians who do Rotarians. Any group of people could be divided in this way. And so in some ways, people try to use me as a tool to bludgeon other fat people by see, she's out there doing stuff,
right.
And she's, maybe she's not thin, but she did this. And so I think it's really important to be clear as an athlete that nobody of any size has any obligation to participate in fitness in any way, but everybody of every size should be welcome. And so that's what my work is about. So running a marathon and having a Netflix marathon are both morally equivalent activities and on a Sunday. And that's really important. It's not about, performing health to somebody's satisfaction so that I can get basic human respect. It's about I get basic human respect because I have a pulse, and then I get to do what I want with my fat body.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Can't follow that. But you can.
So I think for me, I had always thought about taking yoga in my 20s, and I remember I did this one class in college, and I was definitely the heaviest person there, and I can remember actually farting in class and thinking this is the last time I ever do this. I'm fat and I farted in class. And I think I was also one of maybe two people of color in this entire room, and so I was very sort of demoralized by that. And then many, many years later, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I have fibromyalgia and I have arthritis, and I've been trying to find all kinds of ways to kind of heal my body, and I kept being encouraged to try yoga, and I was like, I don't, I just didn't think that it was something that I knew how to do, and I think because I started seeing on social media women of size starting to move their bodies in ways that we've been told that we can't do, especially because I think yoga, although not originally intended to be this sort of competitive sport that was meant for thin white women who live in Santa Monica, you do internalize that because those are the images that you see on the cover of yoga magazines or ads, and we've come a very long way. I mean, when I think about someone like Jessamine Stanley, who we saw really briefly, who is a very, very visibly fat, dark-skinned black woman with short hair, who can do things with her body that I have never seen anybody do with their body. And so once I started to get a little bit more comfortable and I found the right teachers who weren't judging me on my body and showed me how I could move my stomach out of the way and adjust my body to be able to do these things, it was groundbreaking, and it did heal my body. And so that has taught me that you know what, I can dance if I want to do that. I can run a marathon if I want to do that. I don't fucking want to run a marathon. I would much rather watch a Netflix marathon. But yeah, I mean, that sort of representation is so important because it really changes. And I think that's another thing for young people, is to be able to see people like them doing yoga and doing all kinds of other things that other folks do. Your body doesn't have to limit you in any way. Absolutely not.
What are the things you do to keep yourself mentally healthy and happy?
I mean, I haven't since I dyed the hair, but I'm a swimmer. I'm a distance swimmer, so swimming for me, meditation, those things are really helpful. And I've just learned a lot about self-care in the last few years. I had a back injury, and it took me out of commission for a while, and so it really forced me to learn about self-care. So I do practice escapism a fair amount, when I need to. I turn off the television and my phone, just whatever I can do to sort of recharge and take care of myself. And then I surround myself with people who, to your point about talking about diets and not talking about it, I will also leave the room if someone talks about it. If someone starts talking about their cleanse, I'm like, hey, that's an eating disorder, bye. Like, I just won't have it.
Yeah.
And I am no longer afraid of offending people. So I just have stopped worrying about hurting people's feelings. They're clearly not concerned with mine.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Cool. So, on a personal level, one of the most powerful things I ever stumbled onto was the idea of creating a mantra that I say every time I get a negative message about fat bodies. And my personal mantra is, "Hey, that's bullshit. You can't make it work for you." And that's what I do. And so, after a few months of actively working on every time I saw something on a magazine, on TV, on a billboard, being like, "Hey, that's bullshit." Hey, now it's reflexive. It's subconscious. So the message doesn't even get in before my "Hey, that's bullshit" jumps out and squashes it, destroys it, blows it up, whatever. And so that has helped a lot. And then just on a more general scale, it's why I do activism. The work that I do, sometimes it makes changes, sometimes it has effects, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes projects I do epically fail. But it's not about the outcome, it's about that I did something, that I said something, that I stood up for something that I believed in, that I refused to just accept it. And so activism for me is the way that I take care of myself.
Yeah. So for me, I think ever since maybe 91, when Naomi Wolf wrote her Beauty Myth, that book, The Beauty Myth, I stopped buying any, or reading or looking. I don't look at any women's magazines ever. I just don't. I just don't do that. And we don't have a TV. I'm very selective about what I watch. I've been on a Facebook diet for several months. I think that keeps me healthier than constantly. And it's not just about the messages. It's also just the clatter and the clutter in my brain. So when the book had just come out and I was writing op-eds, I wrote an op-ed in a few in the LA Times, the Washington Post about this issue, and you get a lot of hate there, and it doesn't matter, at that point when you're taking a stance and arguing something really radical, like we should accept people and give people rights and dignity, regardless of their way. That you get all the hate, you get all of the hate, the fat phobia, regardless of the size, and they don't know your size, and they project all that. So I didn't read them. I didn't read any of the comments. I think there were over 500 comments on the Washington Post article. Who knows what I don't know, because I don't. So once in a while I'll get an email or a letter, and that's bullshit. And I just put it aside, so that helps keep me healthy.
The only diet I ever consider taking is a social media diet. And for the most part, I try to curate, my Instagram and my Facebook with things that are positive or images that reflect things that I think are important to see. So, a lot of it is I'm really interested in fashion. I want to see, fat women wearing beautiful clothes and doing what they do. I want to see fat women doing yoga and that kind of stuff. So I find that very healing. But there are other times when it becomes overwhelming, and you write a post that trolls come and look at, and I can remember the first time I had somebody write something nasty and they told me I deserved to be raped because I was showing my fat body. And so when that starts to happen a lot, it really can wear you down as an activist. And I think
because we're so passionate, sometimes we feel like we don't deserve to take a break and recharge, but we absolutely have to do that. I mean, at least for me, I found it's the only way that I can then come back and be like, and fuck you, you're a 12-year-old from who knows where, just being a dick. Like, you don't really matter. And the people that need to see this are seeing it, and that's way more important than anything terrible somebody could say to me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I want to take some questions from the audience.
Totally blushing. I find it interesting that this is all sort of coming to a tipping point when that study came out that 67% of American women are of size 14 and above. And I was just wondering, they talked about we need to occupy that. I'm like, yes! Like, all I want to do is, start a lobby and go to Washington tomorrow. If you think that the women's movement can embrace this as well. I feel like it is, with all the talk of intersectionality, I do feel like it's a black hole. And yet it's the thing that literally goes across everything. So, conservatives, you know what I mean? Liberals everywhere. So I'm just wondering if you think that there is a way to sort of stir up, since we are the majority, a large majority, do you think that we can stir up that movement? I mean, #MeToo. Can we stir up these movements to really call them out? And is body image on that too? Is fat visibility on that too?
I think it's been a huge blind spot in the feminist movement, and a lot of very prominent feminists have a lot of internalized fat phobia that, they're dieting, they're trying to be thinner even though they're, not that fat in some cases, not average or less than average, they're trying to be thinner. And so I think it has been a blind spot. But that said, I think there is some progress lately that's been made, and you mentioned the #MeToo movement. My other research is on sexual harassment. That was the topic of my dissertation. So I was doing research for that in the 90s, and I didn't see this Me Too movement coming. It's very humbling, right, when this happens, because you see, wow, things can change really quickly, kind of out of nowhere, and even people who are researching it don't see it coming. And so I think that, I'd be interested to hear what other people think, but I think there's some momentum on this issue, and that there has been some progress, and that it's less kind of accepted in feminist circles to express anti-fat prejudice, but I would love to see that Me Too movement on this issue.
So in queer organizing, I came out in Texas in 1996, which was an interesting time and place to be out as queer. And there was a lot of pushback, but what we had was that queer people were pretty sure we deserved basic civil rights. And unfortunately, a lot of fat people aren't in that position. And so there are the people out in front who are like, this is what we deserve, this is what we're going to get, this is what we demand. But then we have to turn around and be like, no, seriously, y'all, this is what we deserve. And so, there's that issue. And also the fact that there again, intersectionally, there are a lot of people who are fat, who are also people of color, disabled people, people with disabilities, who have bigger issues in their lives because of racism, because of ableism, transphobia, homophobia, and so fat phobia might not be their primary marginalization or area of oppression. And so to ask them to focus in on size when there are other much bigger issues that they are dealing with, is a huge problem that we have. So I think that is something that we have to look at too, how are we supporting those communities rather than just asking that they support a movement that has been traditionally predominantly white, predominantly able-bodied. So those are things that we have to look at too as a movement, I think.
But I am also an improviser, and I teach youth to engage in civic and social action through improv, and then I also do communications, a lot of social media, and so I'm always trying to bring conversations around feminism, conversations around body positivity into all that work, particularly when working with high school students. It's a social issue that they tend to not bring up, but that when I bring it up, they all start going like this. And so I'm trying to use my voice and trying to use my body, my visible body, as an expression of letting people know that it's okay to take up that space, and that it's really important for us to have those conversations. So I'm at mixedfatchick.com and also elementopia.com, where I do certified life coaching as well.
Yeah, so I am, a lot of the work I'm doing is more research. Like, I'm working on a new book that is looking at, it's called Come Out, Whoever You Are, and it's about how different types of different populations are talking about coming out, and I talk about coming out as fat, coming out as undocumented and unafraid, and the Me, I have a whole chapter I've been writing and having a lot of fun with the Me Too movement, but you know, time goes very slowly in academia, so this book, you can look forward to it. It will be out in January 2020. In the meantime, I said I was on a Facebook diet. I don't go and look there very much, but I do sometimes post on my Facebook page what's wrong with fat. So you can like that, and it's all fat positivity, and you know, I'll repost your stuff and other people's blogs and things like that, so you can check that out if you want.
Cool. So you can find most of my stuff at danceswithfat.org. And on the front page, you'll find all my social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And then my personal project right now is, I started a project a while ago to like go outside my comfort zone as an athlete, which resulted in 2 marathons, and now I'm training for an Ironman triathlon, which I disrecommend, by the way. I don't think it's a good idea at all, if you're curious. But you can, if you want to follow that journey for some reason, you can find that at ironfat.com.
I did a sprint triathlon,
Yeah.
and God help, sorry. I'm so impressed with you.
I don't know if people should be like impressed or give me a stern talking to. I'm never sure. Like,
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I'm at Celia Fink on all the platforms. I just finished my first year writing on a show called For the People. It will premiere on Tuesday night. It's a new Shonda Rhimes executive produced show, so it's very fun. And then I have a television show in development with Mila Kunis that, if it should make it to air, a lot of people will be fucking and they'll be fat. So you will find out more information if you follow me.
Let's see, my work, I do web series, I'm a writer-director, and website jamiephhanson.com.
Please,
I'm about to embarrass my stepdaughter, who is almost 12 years old, who's right here just like shrinking in her chair.
Yeah,
But I just wanted to say, like, talking about kids and stuff like that, I'm a mom and my body changed, like, whoa, once I gave birth the first time. I'm about to do it again, knowing that it's going to change more. Thank you. But when I was 12, I was dieting. I also was a young person doing Weight Watchers. And to be able to take my stepdaughter to witness something like this shows that there's change. It makes me really, really happy and hopeful. So I just want to say thank you so much. The film was absolutely wonderful, and I just hope it gets seen more because it's such a vital conversation. So thank you so much for contributing to it.
We're using the language of fat, but make no mistake, we're talking about gender, we're talking about race, and we're talking about class.
This is for all the fat girls!
It's really powerful to give the solution.
You can be a fat person and be fucking phenomenal.